Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Supporting a Feeling Life. My name is Jonathan.
I'm Yasmin.
Today we want to talk to you about energy in relationships and what happens to energy that often begins with a flush and a flurry in the first sort of 6 months, but over time can dissipate and leave a couple feeling less than the charge they once knew.
This is often what we refer to as the honeymoon period, and it's in a time where there's such a lot of energy in a couple. There's a lot of sexual energy, but there's a lot of energy that is really about being seen, loved, accepted, able to be yourself. And it's very intoxicating. It's really addictive, and it's really quite a wonderful thing. And it's what draws us together.
It can be a highly creative energy where dreams start to be explored and even acted on. But what happens to that energy? Because most people, when they begin relationships, they hope to experience the same sense of love and connection for years to come. It can slowly be dissipated.
It can, and life is very busy, so we end up fulfilling roles in life. Work take over, family demands can take over, leaving very little time for generating and creating the energy between two people.
Yasmin and I learned over the years to really look after this. We've lived very full and busy lives, and it's not always been easy to actually turn around and be there just for each other. I know there have been times in the past when you have said to me, I sometimes feel like your clients get the best of you. And you know, it was fair, it was true, because I think a lot of people would relate to this, is that we give a lot out in our work.
We do.
Not just ourselves, but everyone. That's what life does, it pulls us out. And we start to take for granted and rely on the energy that was originally there establishing the sort of foundation years of the relationship. So we're talking about a conscious relationship where you're actually learning to recognize what is asking for attention and healing so that you can consciously recreate that energy.
We're always looking for energy in everything that we do, and it's easy to take for granted that the energy, the feeling that we began with somebody just stays there. And it can be a bit of a surprise when it's not.
No. And it sometimes gets sabotaged because, well, often it gets sabotaged because we don't get taught about this a lot, but a relationship is a healing space, and it invites what doesn't feel loved into the love. So love itself becomes the sort of the place where, well, the parts of us which are less than love show up. And I know that I was surprised that after sort of that wonderful honeymoon period with you, when certain words started to fall out of my mouth and little ways of sabotaging things came about, not realizing that I actually wanted to sabotage things a little bit just so that I could make it feel more comfortable, which is an odd thing to do because it certainly was uncomfortable.
I think that it's also really important to realize that it takes energy in life to live, to give, to create, to continue to grow ourselves. And we're often putting a lot of energy into the things that we're doing, and we naturally look to receive energy back. Very often we'll end up feeling as though there's not as much of the person or not as much of that feeling that we used to look for. But it never means that love necessarily has gone, particularly when you first start noticing it. It's simply that that person is not quite as available as they were. They're a little more caught up in their experience, in their feelings, and the thoughts that they're having, and the life that they're living.
And this is where we fall into that very human of traps, where it becomes easier to feel better about yourself. As Yasmin said, we're looking for energy in everything we do, so we begin to invest more in our work, we begin to invest more perhaps in our friendships or in our leisure activities as a way of receiving the feeling, the energy that we once experienced in the relationship.
Absolutely.
And when that gets recognised and seen by the other partner, then it can feel like a wee bit of rejection. I know that, you know, Yasmin has said to me in the past that sometimes it felt like my clients got the best of me, and I paid attention to that and really saw that that was something I had to be very careful of, because I would come home tired, Yasmin would come home tired, and we would both end up feeling a little bit of the gap that was exposed from putting out so much. So it asked us to step up and really take care of things in a new way.
Absolutely. When we commit to a relationship, there's a particular feeling that we create together. It's like deciding to build a fire and each of you is adding to that fire. We have to remember to keep those fires burning, because if they grow low into an ember, then there's not very much warmth. There's not a lot of feeling available. And it's often through no one's fault. It's often through past experiences, past hurts that affect it. And it's also incredibly vulnerable. So living completely openly with someone is about recognizing what really matters, particularly together, so that you're able to feel what you need.
So it asks you to start looking after the love rather than hoping that the love will just look after you. That's the kind of more innocent version of relationships that we are taught in this romantic notion that you just fall in love and it's happy ever after.
It is, absolutely.
Where, in fact, relationships really ask us to become more and more conscious of how our energy and who we are impacts what really matters to us, impacts that fire that Yasmin talks of. We all know it. You all know it. You've seen it, or you may have felt it yourself, those early throes of relationship when someone else is in love and you see them in love and you can't help but be warmed by seeing what's occurring when a couple are in love. That's energy that you're feeling and seeing.
So when things do go awry and there's a bit of a gap, things aren't going well, what we often see people doing, of course, is pointing the finger, being able to name what someone's not doing, and feeling really distressed and unhappy about it. And of course, communication is a very important part of this process. We have to remember, however, that if that is all we do, we're not going to get very far. Because when we're naming what's not happening or what someone else is not doing and what you cannot feel from them, all your vulnerability, all your needs are going to come up. And your needs are reflecting the need for energy, the need for the love, the need for the connection within someone.
It's, as Yasmin said, to recognise those needs and to communicate those needs are essential. But because you are engaging with another, your delivery, your words, what you're holding in yourself is going to have an impact on the other, and it's going to have an impact on all of their bruising and all of their sense of feeling criticised and not good enough. And you've got to remember that person may have spent the last number of years feeling better about themselves for maybe paying the mortgage on the house, or transforming the gardens, or whatever they put their energy into. And so you're suddenly getting conscious that I'm unhappy, I'm not feeling so good. Don't be surprised if they come back with a sort of a litany of all the things that they have done over that time as some kind of justification. So it's the energy that you need to be talking about. It's about bringing both couples to a consciousness of how things are feeling, not what has been done.
And very often that lack of feeling of the energy in a relationship, intimately as it once was in the beginning, becomes transferred into the doing things. So that if you have been doing a lot of things, you're hoping that that's creating the energy, that this is saying I love you and this is for us.
Look at how good my lawns are mowed. I love you, darling.
And it is very important. These things do matter, so that if one member of the couple is actually doing the laundry, they're doing that for the relationship, they're doing it for the family, and it is a form of love and it is a form of energy. However, the external things will never quite match the internal connection, that energy that is absolutely needed. So it is important just to take a moment to reflect that we seldom initially start firing words and fingers at each other because of the lack of energy, but that sense of the lack, or the sense of the lessening of that energy, can stimulate a lot of vulnerability in a relationship. And it brings up an awareness of little things that aren't quite looking or feeling right. So we can get critical in those early stages.
Which ultimately can lead to the mind particularly exploring a solution to what the heart is feeling. And it may start looking at the idea of separation as the only way to sort of recover the self, because we're losing ourselves in these moments as well, because we're not getting that reflection of who we are through the eyes, through the touch, through the connection in the same way. And so what do you do when you start running out of energy? Do you just decide that the relationship has run its course and you'll go rebuild that energy somewhere else, or are there other options?
Because we'll always come to a place that is really sometimes tender and vulnerable, maybe that you've never done in a relationship before, which is to reinvest energy again. Now, some people think of it as a second honeymoon, getting away from everything, space, time to reconnect with each other, and breaks and holidays and just time with each other and in each other's company can be really wonderful for that.
There's a proviso.
There is a proviso.
And that is that if you decide, or one of you decides, right, this energy is failing, we're not getting the relationship's not getting the attention it needs, I'm booking a time away, don't be surprised if the first period of that holiday, that time away, is quite tender, because that's the space when everything that has been underneath the busy and the doing is going to rise to the surface to complain a little bit. And so learning how to hold each other, and when each of you can be honest about recognizing what has been absent, it stops being about blame and it starts coming back to the foundation of why you fell in love in the first place, what it was that you hoped for, dreamt about, felt deeply inside of you in that first initial firing of energy. There's a wonderful quote from the poet Rumi which says, "Love is friendship caught on fire." And we need to look after those friendships in a conscious way. So these things that we can do need to be done from a new place, not just from, well, if I book the hotel away, my wife's going to turn up in her best lingerie. It's not going to be the way it's going to necessarily run if you haven't invested love and time and energy into things to begin with.
It's a time when needs arise, and so often in relationships we hope and expect that our needs will be seen and understood as they were and seemed to be in the beginning. So bringing those needs up can be vulnerable, because we might fear that someone's going to get defensive, reactive to those needs, hear it as a criticism or a complaint, and that time away becomes really uncomfortable. So it is important to take a risk, but it's also important to own how you feel. And when you own how you feel, you're not directing it at someone in a tone that they're going to hear in a negative way, but they may hear you inviting what you need. And that's a very important difference to consider.
So before you make big decisions about where your relationship is at, you need to consider where your energy is at, and where the energy of the other is at, and where the energy of the relationship is at. Now, sometimes on reflection of this, it becomes very clear that no one has been attending, or it's been a very one-sided attendance to the fire of this relationship. And by having these conversations, coming forward from this more heart-centered place, you actually discover the other person had actually left the relationship quite some time ago. But then you're getting a truth of its own kind. But you'll know because of the way it feels. You'll know because of the energetic response that you're getting and engaging with.
We don't mean to imply that for this to really be healed or recovered, you have to go away on holiday or go somewhere that you've booked just to have special time. Putting energy into a relationship is something we do every day. Have a look at how much you do with your partner. How much do you share? How many activities do you both do together that are supportive? How much do you hold the responsibilities for the home together, for the chores together? We're really moving beyond a time now, simply because men and women are both working, where it's someone's job. We don't tend to have those kinds of traditions quite so much. But it is important to recognise that this is about putting energy every day into things, from sharing food and talking about what is going to be bought to be cooked, or the different things that you both feel you have a need for. And it's about building that fire, understanding as you bring yourself forward that your honesty, your care, your support of self, but also your interest in the care and well-being of your partner is also in this.
In some ways, it's by seeing in the mundane, the everyday, is a sacred opportunity to really care, not just for the other, but to care for the relationship, how you want the relationship to feel. The extra special treats, the time away, they become part of the conversation. They become a looked forward to experience that you actually invest in, because the feeling that's existing between you. It becomes something that you are perhaps even a little excited about exploring and having together, when you see this everyday engagement as of value, and how you look after this fire that was started when you first met.
And this is not going to cost you anything really at all. It's costing thoughtfulness, but it's not a financial cost. It's costing consideration, but it's not asking you to go over and beyond your needs. It's about feeling a balance, recognizing the needs you both have in this relationship, being able to acknowledge and listen to those needs, to care for those needs. Now, we do know that in relationships, sometimes individuals have left the energy and left the investment of that relationship some time ago. And that can be a very painful and difficult realization. It doesn't always mean that everything's come to an end, but it will mean that someone has started to move toward meeting their own need, and they will meet that need outside of the relationship instead of investing in it. Now, depending on how bad that has become, that awareness is absolutely vital, because it will reveal something about the past history. It will reveal something about pain, unresolved issues, things that have needed to be talked about and not resolved. Always honesty, gentleness, owning of feelings, looking at needs, looking at energy are vital.
And you'll be amazed at what is recoverable when you actually recognise you want to look after the energy. It's quite extraordinary what we've seen over a time when couples have actually learned how to communicate from this more heartfelt place, from this more energetic place, when they've included each other's needs and seen that there's an opportunity for all of this to be shared.
It is really important to realise that it is all about energy. If there's not much energy there, hearts aren't going to be very open, love won't be felt, needs won't be met.
No.
And it's as simple as that.
So look after your energy and look after the energy of the relationship, and you may be surprised at how the relationship really begins to look after you again.
We wish you really loving, fulfilled, happy relationships with lots of loving energy in all relationships that you have.
So until next time, take care of yourselves and stay close to your feelings.
Bye for now.